What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? So here I am in Jacksonville, Florida, and this video is about the disappearance of Maddie Ray Clifton, November 3rd, 1998, right down this street. And this is a story I knew a little bit about. It was national news, international news if you include Canada, her disappearance and subsequent finding of Maddie and what happened afterwards. But I'm not an expert on any of the crimes I do. I usually research them heavily and tell the story. This time I'm bringing someone along with me who knows the story very, very well. And this is my friend Brian. You and I met each other about 4 years ago?
Yeah, down in Gainesville.
Down in Gainesville. I had watched your River Phoenix video you did good 10 years ago?
Yes. That'd be 11 or 12, I know.
Yeah, I had watched it before I started YouTube. And then when I had River Phoenix, I wanted to cover his story in Gainesville on my list. I remembered your video. I contacted you and said, would you like to come along?
Yes, sir.
And we came along.
It was a fun night.
It was a fun day. Yeah. And I believe a lot of people, after they watched my video, because it got a good amount of views, it was popular, which I'm thankful for, thought that your accent was fake, right?
That's what they thought.
That's what they thought. But
I don't know where it came from.
That's a thick Cajun accent, right? Yeah. So you know this story well.
Yeah, we lived it.
You lived it because you're a Jacksonville native, and you lived right around here, right?
I was 12th grade, senior in high school, and it was like yesterday.
Right, like yesterday.
It was just like yesterday.
All right, I'm going to turn the camera around on Brian. We're going to walk down the street, show you where it happened, then we're going to go visit Maddie's grave at the end of the video. Let's go. All right, Brian. So tell me what happened down at this house.
It was November 3rd, and it was just a normal day. The 8-year-old girl went out to play with her friends,
Right.
as she did every day. And after a few hours, the sun started going down, the street lights started coming on, and Maddie never came home. And later that night, her mother made the first 911 call. She said, my daughter went out to play. She began crying. She said she never came home. That began a 7-day search where they locked this neighborhood down and they went all the way out to the county lines. And it became a national news story that this 8-year-old girl had gone missing.
Right.
And after 7 days, and understand this is a long 7-day period.
Right. You told me this entire street was covered with...
It was under 24-hour surveillance. There was cops literally lined up on these streets. If you turned into this neighborhood, you were searched.
Right.
Your vehicle was searched, and they wanted to know what you were doing here. You could not leave the neighborhood without being searched.
They really focused on her being in the neighborhood still.
They felt like the whole time she was in the neighborhood. And every one of these houses that you see on this street were searched multiple times. One of them was searched as many as 8 times.
8 times.
And the house where they finally found her was searched 3 times. There was a lot of a lot of birds. And there was a lot of incense being burnt in that house in the boy's bedroom where she was found. And that covered up the smell. But if you look right down the street at the end, the 2-story house, that's Maddie's house. And that's where she called home, and her family still calls that home today.
Right.
Both families lived across from each other for years. The boys, where she was found, his family has moved, but if we go down there, we can see the middle of the scene.
Let's go. So there's the house as we're getting closer. That was Maddie's house, and her family does still live there. So we are going
They still
to
live there, and they
keep a
still-
distance when we get over there.
Yep.
So tell me what happened.
So after 7 days, Melissa Phillips, who was Joshua Phillips's mother,
Who's Joshua Phillips?
he is the guy who killed her.
And how old was he?
Her 14-year-old playmate. And he was in his American history class when his mother found the body at 7:30 in the morning on November the 10th. And within minutes, the entire neighborhood was swarmed on his house. And he had hit her several times with a bat, knocked her out, and stabbed her 7 times. And it was so gruesome that the blood was all the way up on the ceiling fan in his bedroom. And he shoved her underneath the waterbed in a fetal position at the foot of the bed and slept in that bed for 7 nights with her underneath. And no one ever expected that. When the news of that got out, there was a man who passed out. It was so gruesome. People were just shocked. They were in tears. They were screaming. They couldn't believe it. And as I said, I was a senior in high school. I was in the locker room dressing back in from gym class. And I remember the guys that I went to school with were like, I'm going to kill him if I find him. I can't believe he would do something like that. My classmates were very angry. It moved everyone.
And the boy was not in your school, right? He was.
No. He went to Northside Skills Center. And I went to NB Forest High School on the other side of town. But
Right.
during that story, this big city became a small town.
So, Brian, we were talking. Okay, well, first we should explain. I'd like you to explain why he did it, what his explanation is, and what happened to her.
At first, there was no explanation from him. He was very silent and cried, kept his head down, couldn't stand to look at the crime scene photos when they showed him in court. And a lot of people were like, why? And it came out later, and now this is no excuse for him doing it, but it came out later that his father was a very violent alcoholic. He beat his mother often, beat him, was verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. And personally, I think that, well, she wasn't supposed to be over there because he wasn't allowed to have friends over. But father came home in the middle of it, and the rumor goes he hit her in the face with a baseball by accident. By accident.
Right.
And panicked when his father came home, so he hit her with the bat to knock her out. And father came in, he went out and distracted the father, and went back into his bedroom. She was still alive, so he stabbed her 7 times, fatally. And that's when he hit her. I do not personally believe that if the father was as mean to him as he was, that would have happened.
You think he was so scared of the repercussions from his father for hitting her accidentally with the bat?
His father, during an interview before, and there's a whole nother story to the father, and we'll get to that later, but the father used to threaten him with his hands doing like this, like he's gonna hurt him bad. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I think he was so scared of him that he panicked, and at 14, you don't think about the consequences to your actions. You know?
Yeah, and we were looking at photos earlier, you and I. He's a young-looking 14 for sure.
Yeah.
He looks like a little. 14-year-olds are kids anyways, but he looks like a child.
Yeah, and the thing is the neighborhood here loved him. There's somebody on this street we're standing on that went off and went fishing with him just a couple of days earlier, and that guy was just shocked. You know, no one ever believed that he could do something like this.
Well, we were talking, you and I, a few days ago when we were filming something else about whether killers are born or made.
Right.
And that's something you and I really got into a discussion about.
Well, I work with teenagers in the ministry, and I've had a couple of them that wound up killing.
Right.
One in particular. And if he had been raised differently, it wouldn't have happened.
Do you think some killers are born?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Some are born,
Yes.
some are made.
Yes.
It's not a black or white thing.
Correct.
I agree.
But, you know, you can always tell later on after the trial and after they settle down in the prison how they act and things that happen, whether they're made or born. And I believe this one was made. No excuse for what he did.
No excuse.
But
right. We were saying
there's
that.
a lot of things that would not have happened if he'd been raised differently by his father.
So Brian, Maddie's house is this one right here?
Correct.
Correct. And the back of the house, Joshua's house, is right there, yes?
Correct. Watched.
Pardon? So this is the end of a dead-end road right beside the houses, and a lot of media was camped out here?
Yep, it was all camped out. Press conference was here and everything.
Right down here, huh? This goes into a little park, so this is where the kids would have played. So, what can you tell me? What happened afterwards?
Well, the house behind me.
That house
See
right
that
there?
house right there in the corner.
Yeah.
Underneath that window on the right side of the house, that was the bedroom window. Underneath that window is where she was found.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me squeeze in. So that window to the right of the pinwheel, to the right of the compass, I guess
Correct.
it is.
That
was his bedroom window.
That was where his bedroom. And she spent 7 days there. And the mother came out, and of course there were cops lined up and down this street. And then that was it. The rest is history. They arrested him in his social studies class over there at his school. And that's the last time he's seen the light of day as a free man.
So he's still in jail to this day. Do you think he will ever get out?
He came up, Florida law changed concerning minors who are charged as adult and receive life sentence. And he came up for parole and could possibly get out. But the judge struck it down and made him stay for a life sentence. So that's upheld. But and that was just 2 years ago. The family has had to relive the whole thing.
Right.
When that came up. So
do you think, and I know this is just your personal opinion, do you think he should get out?
No.
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 If he
if
hit her,
he got out,
right.
If he got out, it would be very dangerous for him.
Still to this day.
Yes.
We have people like that in Canada. True. Yeah. Yes. But now it seems from everything I've read and what you read, it started off as an accident. Then he took it to a level.
Yeah.
That out of fear.
Out of fear. I mean, I might be totally wrong.
He could have done it out of anger too.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No, they were playmates. I mean,
right.
There's videos. 48 Hours did a series on killer kids, and they did a series on this, and then he's got home videos of they were friends, and he filmed her and filmed everybody else just playing around. They're playmates. But I think there was a darkness in the house from that father, and that fear make you do some crazy things.
Right.
And I think that was one of them.
And a fear in a 14-year-old who's being abused.
Well, after he was put in jail, Josh's mother, her mother died, which would be Josh's grandmother. And then just a week or two later, Josh's father left here by himself to go out to Wakulla County, which is near Tallahassee, to visit Josh, and he flipped his van off the side of the road in Tallahassee, and he died on the side of the road.
Right.
After that, his mother did an interview, and she said straight out, she said, I blame Steve, which is Josh's father.
Right.
I blame him for the whole thing because of the way he was violent towards that boy and the way he treated him and me. That boy was scared for his life. And that was the only result he could come to, in my mind and in his mind.
Right.
And again, it's no excuse for what he did.
No.
That's his fault, but still.
I've seen that interview with the mother. She seems very, very distraught and normal. And
she lost everything she had. Her son, her husband, and her mother. But I guess the husband dying is a relief. But
right. Do you know if she still visits her son?
I'm sure she does. I've seen some where she takes communion with him and stuff. And something after the father died, the mother lived in that house by herself. The Clifton family would go over there and help her with groceries and stuff. And
really?
They got to be friends with her until she moved. But the house looks totally different now than it used to.
Yeah.
It used to be peach and old brick and stuff. They've upgraded it and made it modern and added a couple of bathrooms to it. But
so Maddie's house, which is right here.
Correct. That's the 2-story.
That's her family embraced the mother of.
After things calmed down.
Right.
But I just can't imagine.
You know. So let's just recap quickly. Maddie lived here.
Yeah.
8 years old. 14-year-old neighbor lives here. They're all friends on the street, the kids.
This is a tight neighborhood.
All play around here. She's supposed to be home before it gets dark. She doesn't come home. They were playing inside the house.
Yeah.
And he hit her with a bat.
With a baseball.
Baseball bat.
At first, by accident.
Oh, a baseball.
Yeah, in
not
the backyard. Supposedly in the backyard. And then he carried her in the house. She wouldn't stop crying. The father came home. That's when he hit her with the bat.
Right. That was what we were talking about yesterday. The father was coming home and he couldn't stop her from crying.
Yeah.
So he was scared.
She wasn't supposed to be there anyway. And you know, they interviewed the father right after he was arrested. And the father, this tells you that he's a jerk. He said this statement, and I quote, "If she hadn't have come over here, my son wouldn't have done this." What kind of a moron would say something? I've been over to people's houses when I wasn't supposed to get there. They just asked me to leave. They didn't kill me.
Right.
You know, I can't believe you would do. But it confirms what Josh's mother said about him being an abusive, word I don't want to say.
SOB.
Yeah.
SOB.
To say the least.
Wow. Well, shall we go visit Maddie?
We'll go visit Maddie.
Let's go.
Crowds. I used to write you stories that don't amuse me now. We went a couple around. You're only up when I'm down. I used to think about you. You don't amuse me now. Isn't it cool to waste time and play it fine? You gotta listen here, fool. I'll make my own bed now. Your hands together and pound them loud for me. I'm no king pretender, I only claim to be. I haven't seen you in a lifetime. What would you say to me now? I will write you stories if I remember how.
Let's say as I'm walking around in the heat trying to find Maddie's grave, I just had a conversation with a lady, Sarah. We exchanged numbers. We just lost her husband recently, and I am Sarah. You're going to be watching this video, and that was a lovely talk we had about loss and grief, and I could see it in your eyes, and I know you saw it in mine, and I hope things get a little better. As we both know, as we talked about, they're not going to ever get better, but things can get a little better. So Sarah, you're a lovely woman, and your husband seemed to be an amazing person, and bless you and your kids for coming out here the way you do. And yeah, and oh God, we're going to stay in touch. Just want to say, like, when you're in a cemetery, sometimes I spend a lot of time in cemeteries, weirdly, but I see people by graves, and they'll see me walking around, or when I'm back in Toronto at my parents' graves, and but I see people, and I stick to myself, do what I do. But sometimes you can catch someone's eye, or they catch your eye, and you know that somebody wants to talk. And cemeteries aren't creepy, they're not scary, they're sad, but they can also be, they're a place for reflection and contemplation. And so I just want to say that, like, if you're ever in a cemetery, you never approach somebody that's grieving at a grave, but sometimes they might approach you. Sometimes if you make that eye contact, you might see that they want to talk. They want to get something off their chest. They want to grieve, even if it's with a stranger, and that can be a beautiful moment. Really beautiful. Well, Brian, as we're looking up, what are these trees called?
Live oak.
You told me they were called scrub
Not a
oaks.
scrub oak. I'm
4
sorry.
years ago, and I've been saying it every time I see them around me. We got a little shade here. It was very, very hot here in Jacksonville today. Brian, anything you want to add about the story of Maddie Ray Clifton, little Maddie?
Well, people say that she's gone too early, but when she had her funeral over at the San Jose Catholic Church just down the road, people from all over this country showed up. And from San Jose Catholic Church was about a mile from here to here. Both sides of the street, they were lined 2 and 3 people deep, tens of thousands of people, and they had their hands held like a human chain all the way.
Wow.
And I remember our father being interviewed about that, and he said, I tried to catch every one of their faces. And people say she died in vain, but nah, bro. She touched a lot of lives, made a lot of parents realize just how precious their kids are, and a lot of people realize just how precious life is. And it was short, but it wasn't in vain. She touched a lot of people, and like I said, she brought this city to its knees and together. And sometimes it takes a tragedy to do that, but well, hey, that's what happens sometimes.
All right, beautifully put, Ron. Okay, so you said it all. You got to get working on your channel, man. You got to get some. You haven't put anything up for a long time.
Man, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I don't have time.
I don't have time for that.
But you're good at it. Thank you for telling me the story.
That's all right.
All right. This is Brian, and rest in peace, Maddie. Peace out.